Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sports Guys Iowa. We've got a new show that we're going to be kicking off here on this podcast, the Peacock Corner, our first show exclusively developed for the Upper Iowa Peacocks, Iowa's favorite D2 program. And we've got our co-hosts on for the show. We're going to be helping us lead it all through this year, football, basketball, various sports. We got Mike Schrock and Warren Reyerson. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yep.
Thank you.
And they're both play-by-play guys for the university today. And so today we're going to talk about both the men's and women's basketball team are now approaching the postseason tournament. What today's program is going to be devoted to men's and women's basketball. And why don't we just dive right in? Mike, why don't we start with you? Give us your thoughts on how the season ended for either group, and then we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah, so my thoughts are, boy, thank God we made it. Both teams started out really well this year in the conference and just kind of ran into some roadblocks, if you will, some struggles along the way. But fortunately enough for both teams, they did enough early on to accumulate the points, because the GLVC goes by a point rating system, did enough early on and did enough late to hold on. And I believe the men will be seeded number 7 out of 8. And the women just made it in with the number 8 seed for this coming Thursday.
That's great. Warren, you want to add some commentary to that?
Well, the men were selected to finish 11th in the GLVC, and they wound up with the 7 seeds. I guess by any measure, you might be able to say that they overachieved this season, although it's a bumpy ride along the way, and we'll unpack that here in this show. As far as the women goes, I think they were selected. Mike, you can let me know if I'm off on this. I think they were picked 8th, so they fell right into place, right about where they needed to be. They had a bumpy ride at the end, lost 4 out of 5 to close it out, but they're in. They got UMSL here in the first round. We'll see what they can do against them. But we got 2 teams going down to St. Louis here this week, and neither of us mind that at all.
That's awesome. And I think there was some changes from Brooks McCowan moving down to Missouri, who was the longtime coach of the men's program, and Coach Casper Bauer taking over. I think, like you said, the men overachieved because they really had to rebuild the roster very quickly this year.
They did, and they were a whole mess of guys. Their top scorers, a lot of the guys leaked out, went down to Missouri, followed Brooks down there, but Casey put together a really good team. Not a lot of aircraft carriers on the team, not a ton of length, but a lot of good guard play. And Cale Reister from Hawkeye, Iowa, one town over from Fayette, had a really good freshman season. I'm hoping he has a really good week down in St. Louis here, because I think he's, in my mind, one of the keys here for the week.
Yeah, and when Coach Casper Bauer came in, it was I don't want to say it was too late, but it was a late move by Brooks to take the job down at Mo West. So Coach Casper Bauer actually came in, hit the ground running. He had recruits on campus right away. The first one being Trey Lewis, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later in the program. But like Warren said, we're really guard heavy, and that kind of is really the way that Casey likes to play. He loves the full court defense. He loves the fast-paced style. He likes to put up a lot of shots and a lot of threes, which is a little different. Brooks likes to score a lot of points and beat you that way. Casey wants to score a lot of points and maybe play a little tougher defense. It's been enjoyable. I think if I were in the position to evaluate Coach Casper Bauer on his first year, like Warren said, we were picked to be 11th in the conference. We're in the tournament as a number 7 seed. I think we surprised a lot of people, but just a lot of the stuff that I've been able to see from Coach Casper Bauer from really the next chair over from my broadcasting spot, it's just been incredible. I could go on about Casper Bauer, but I'll say this about him. He is one of the most studious young coaches that I've been around in a long time. His knowledge of the game, and I would go ahead and throw that to his assistant coaches as well, but his knowledge of the game has really been phenomenal, especially for the young kids that he has in our program right now.
He's 32 years of age, and I think, John, you and I have ties that are in Casey Casper Bauer he's still there. And I was amazed at how buttoned up he was right out of the chute, and got him off to a fast start, and then kept everything together during a really wobbly January and February when they were trying to figure some stuff out, having a little bit of trouble finding the bottom of the net. And here they are. They're heading down to St. Louis, and I think they got a chance to play a couple of games this week.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about this week and this year, but on the recruiting trail, he is bringing in next year Odslin Lorenzen from ADM here in the central part of the state, who's the all-time leading scorer from ADM. His dad, Todd, is also the coach of Graceland University. And he's bringing in LED from Baxter, who is the state's leading scorer in all classes. So he's got some top-level recruits. He's keeping talent in the state. It looks like both have declared for Iowa, and I think that bodes well for the future.
It's kind of cool because you think about it, when they moved from the Northern Sun Conference down to the Great Lakes Valley Conference, the geographic footprint of the area where they compete in has now shifted southward. Now you're starting to get some of those southern counties get into central Iowa a little bit. It's a little bit more of an attractive option. Fayette might be for a kid who has some family that might want to go down to Kansas City, see a couple of games, head over to St. Louis, see a couple of games. That everything's shifting a little bit, and it looks like Casey's leaning into that pretty hard.
And I want to give a little bit of credit to Brooks McCowan, too, who really has built Upper Iowa's men's basketball program to where it is today. And we all know when you start winning, people start paying attention. And because of what McCowan has built here, and then you throw in a young, energetic coach who I just think the world of, in Casey Kasperbauer, Upper Iowa is becoming a place or a destination to play Division II basketball, especially for our in-state kids.
Yeah, I'm a big UNI guy. Got family who played there on that basketball program. Maybe someday he comes back when Coach Jake retires.
Yeah.
Never say never.
Never say never. That would be nice to see, wouldn't it?
Would be.
So dive into what you guys think about the tournament on the men's side.
Okay, start with the men's side. I tell you what, I think I've been saying it all year on air. I think the GLVC conference tournaments are wide open this year. I think the number one goal for each GLVC team was just to make it. It didn't matter what seed, just make it, because they are playing it at the University of Missouri St. Louis this year. Their men, I don't believe, made the tournament. So there's going to be no home court advantage there. It's going to be a neutral floor for everybody, just like it was at Lindenwood when we'd hold the tournament there. I think being on a neutral floor and all these teams being so close, you look at the scores of these games, especially down the stretch, there really isn't a lot of blowouts. There's been a few surprises. Upper Iowa, in this little skid they went on, they were in all of these games until the very end and just weren't able to. Yeah, I always say every once in a while you need a ball to bounce your way or it to go off somebody's foot somewhere. And we just weren't getting those breaks and couldn't win those games because of that. But we were right there. And I think this tournament, again, it's going to be the hot team. And if Upper Iowa can catch a little bit of heat and ride that wave from last Saturday at Lewis, I think we really have a shot. But with that being said, I think the other 7 teams have a legitimate shot in this tournament as well.
Mike raises a good point. I think 1 to 11 in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, you really can't tell a whole lot of difference between the two. I think the 2 Kansas City schools look great, and we get one of them here in the opening round. But yeah, I think there's a lot of parity in the league all the way around, especially in the top 10 or 11 teams. And I think that win in Lewis over in Romeoville was a pretty big deal. Gives us a taste of winning, gives us some positive energy going down into St. Louis. It was a really great start for the team. They started off 12-2 and were hitting on all cylinders, and then they lost 8 of their next 12. And I was listening to Mike on the broadcast, and we just really couldn't quite get our head around their inability to finish games on some things because there was a lot of close games inside of 5 points that they just couldn't quite get done. But so they'd lost 8 of their next 12 before heading to Romeoville on Saturday, and they were 81-60 winners there. 15 points for Jack Miller from Jessup, 14 and 11 for Cale Reister from Hawkeye, and then 15, 12, and 8 for Kyle Hernser. And I think all 3 of those guys are going to figure big into the tournament this week. Cold stretch of shooting here throughout January and February. They shot 48% during that 12-2 start, guys, and that's how you win games. They rebounded nearly 40% of their misses, and not a lot of teams do that. And then in the next 12 games, when they lost 8 of those 12 games, they shot only 42% from the floor there and only 31% from 3-point range. That really factored in very much, I think, into that stretch of losing 8 out of 12. But it was a much better showing against Lewis on Saturday. As Mike pointed out, we need a whole lot more of that this week down in St. Louis.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think what Mike was saying, they've got a shot. They've been in a lot of close games. You get on a heater, you're not playing in anybody's gym. You're playing
That's
on a
correct.
neutral floor. I think it bodes well for the future. And I think my personal opinion is that Coach Bauer did a really good job. He got in late because Brooks got that job late, did a really good job of building the program up. And he didn't go out and just get a bunch of, as he said on our podcast, a bunch of D1 guys that couldn't make it elsewhere. He's trying to build with in-state talent and doing things the right way. It's a tricky spot to be in where you can come in and blow up the program where you are and start over with your guys. He chose to build this year as a foundation for the future. And I think he's put himself in a good position.
Yeah, what he's really done is he's built an incredible culture. Anytime you play 11 guys regularly throughout a game, there has to be trust from the players as well as the coaches. Maybe you're going to get more minutes this game than you would other games. And just that relationship that he has with those players. And I've talked to a few of the players that have said that Coach Kasperbauer is a relationships guy. Like, he wants to know who you are, how you're feeling, talk to him. But with that trust that he has built and that culture that he's bringing in and that foundation that he is building, it's just been phenomenal for the program, not only this year, but I think sets us up for success in the future.
I was looking at some early box scores, November, early December, and I saw they were playing 11 or 12 guys. And I'm going, well, holy smokes, that's nice, giving these guys a nice long test drive. When are they going to cut this down to 9 or 10? And Howie Thompson had mentioned, he says, I don't think he's gonna. Yeah, I think he's going to go 10, 11, 12 deep just about every night. And you're right, that does require some trust there. But it's also, you look at it, about every 4 minutes, he's cycling somebody in there. And those guys that are coming off the floor are usually pretty happy for the blow because they're expending great effort on both ends. And that's an element that I thought that he borrowed, or that at least he carried over from the Brooks McCowan era. Maybe a little bit more defensive intensity. I wouldn't say a ton more, but I can count the number of shot clock violations on one hand. They get rid of the ball in a hurry. And I like that pace of play. And those guys, when it's time to sit on the bench and watch for a short spell, they don't mind getting a little break.
Hey, it's a fun brand of basketball. It's also a fun brand of basketball for the young men to play. And I think it's great. I think, especially when you're building a program, it builds excitement. So now let's move on to the women's. Coach Moss. Coach Moss he's in his 4th year. 2 years ago, they won their first postseason game ever. So he's had to do a little more building. He didn't have that foundation that Brooks McCowan had built. He's in his 4th year. He's got him as the 8 seed. Why don't you talk about what are the prospects for the women's team next week at the tournament?
Jumping off from what you talked about a little bit, John, Moss has come in here and really has cemented Upper Iowa women's basketball to where it is now. And again, I'll go back to the coach before, Nate Oakland, who is now an assistant for Tanya Warren over there at UNI, a great friend of mine. Nate Oakland came in and decided, hey, this place, it needs a culture makeover. And Nate Oakland had a fantastic class that he recruited, changed that culture. A couple of years later, took the job of Tanya Warren. Coach Moss came in and not only continued that culture, but grew it. What I really like about Coach Moss, and again, I could talk about our coaches for hours upon hours, is that Coach Moss is a process-driven guy who is all about development. We see these kids come in as freshmen, and then I see them leave as seniors. And I just can't believe how much better they are through working with him, spending the summers here, so on and so forth. So Moss has done a fantastic job with our women's program. He's got some fabulous kids on the team this year. And to be honest with you, in talking with Coach Moss, I think he would say this as well. I think he feels like they've maybe underachieved this year. They had an early injury to a sophomore, Lindsay Davis from Nottoway Valley. She came back, and then 6 games later, a different injury to the same foot. We're hoping she gets a medical red shirt. That took some scoring, that took some experience out of the lineup. But if you look at Coach Moss's lineup this year, he's got Ellie Foster, who was a Wisconsin Green Bay, UNI, and then finally Upper Iowa transfer. This is the first year she's actually played. She sat at Green Bay, sat at Northern Iowa. We started a true freshman in Kendall Lodermeyer, which you watch her play and you're like, there's no way she's a freshman. Very strong kid, very good feet. She's got some work to do. And I think by the time she's a senior, she's going to be fantastic. We started another freshman, Josie Foster, Caledonia kid, fantastic, a lot of length on her, very good. I think she's going to be phenomenal as well as she gets older. So there's 3 of our starters right there that have no Upper Iowa experience or no starting experience at the D2 level. Then you had that with Sydney Nelson, our point guard, who started the year prior. And then we've gone with Ava Privet, who has been playing since she's a freshman on and off, but this is the first year that she's really been a focal point. My point being is Coach Moss has taken a team of really inexperience or lack of experience and has elevated to where they're at today. And I think he would have hoped that they would have won some more games. There's some games that the Drury game here at home was a heartbreaker, last second shot. Otherwise, we had them beat, and we've had a few games like that. I think he expected a few more wins this year, but I think it's worth noting the job that he's done with such inexperienced players at this time.
I think it started with Oakland, and then Coach Moss pushed it forward to the next level. It really kind of starts with taking every reason or excuse that you can't win in Fayette and chucking them in the wastebasket, clearing your throat and saying it out loud. This is what we want to do. And then building a roster, getting a couple of coaches on your bench that are like-minded, that think and feel the same way, and then get some girls that are bought in and tell them what you expect of them, and then coach them up. And then bringing in enough depth so that if you do have an injury like we had in the middle of the season this year, that it isn't the end of the season. And it certainly wasn't for these girls. Everybody kind of stepped up in their roles, some higher quality minutes for the likes of Kendall Lodermeyer and Eva Privet moving up. And it kind of worked out that way. They, again, picked to finish 8th, wound up 8th. They got a shot at Umsel. I think they're going to have to play probably about their best game of the season to get past them. But you can't win if you don't play.
I think the big change, or the biggest thing that I noticed, and the best way to sum it up, is after the last 4 years, they've made the tournament the last 4 years, and they're not satisfied with that anymore. They won that first round game a couple of years ago, and that's really been the benchmark. Now making the tournament is something that they expect to do. They play and they expect to play. Now they want to continue to build on that and hopefully get to a point where they can be in a championship game. While we're all excited that they're in, I think the team is pretty unsettled right now and want more out of this season.
Yeah, it's great. They get an opportunity to close, and I think building a program where you've never really made it to even the conference tournament, and you've been doing that the last 4 years. Not every year is going to be an exponential jump, but there's been building blocks to build a strong foundation going, what I would call for the future. I think for both teams, in my opinion, Brooks McCown, if you live in the state, is a well-known name. Dad Marty just retired last week from Wapsie Valley, and McCown family, his brother's coaching at Kennedy. And him leaving, there was a big concern on my part of, oh boy, right? He's the all-time winningest coach. He built it up. Casper Bauer has done a wonderful job maintaining with the opportunity to keep going. And Coach Moss has built himself a foundation to take off. I think both programs are on the rise. And I think they're also bringing in big-time recruits. And the fact that they're bringing in big-time in-state recruits, I also think is really helpful.
Yeah, it absolutely is helpful. I know last year when we brought in Lindsay Davis on the women's side from Nottoway Valley, that was the first time in a long time that we have brought what I would call a prominent female high school athlete to Upper Iowa women's basketball. A few years prior to that, we had Jessica Musgrave from South Tama, but Lindsay was on a different level. She scoring a lot of points down there, very successful at Nottoway Valley, and she was a big get for Upper Iowa. And once Lindsay put out on Twitter and her social media that she committed to Upper Iowa, more kids from Iowa started answering the phone when Coach Moss was calling. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's great.
And then on the men's side, Cale Reister, the Hawkeye kid coming in, I've been paying specific attention to Cale because he's a Northeast Iowa kid. I'm from the area. I like to watch those local kids make good, but also he's a incoming freshman. A lot of freshmen come in and they're just watching for a while. And Coach Kasperbauer put Cale in right away, 20, 30 minutes a night. And I think early on, and Mike, you jump in at any point, I thought he took his lumps early on, but I think it kind of speaks to what happens when you move from playing small high school basketball, moving up a level, playing some big boy college basketball. Everybody gets bigger and faster and stronger except for you. And it just takes a little while. It takes part of a season to absorb some of that and understand really what it takes. When you're headed to the rim up against a guy, the best guy that Postville's got on a Friday night back in West Union, it doesn't require quite as much effort as if you're up against Rockhurst down at Kansas City and you're going up against their big aircraft carrier. So I think Cale got a taste of that right away. Here by the end of the season, he's going to have 800 or 900 minutes of college basketball experience under his belt. And then, again, capping it off here with the conference tournament, he's a different player now than he was because of those 800 or 900 minutes that he's got under his belt. And I'm just looking for big things from him. Going to the rim next year is going to be different. He'll attack that rim differently. He'll defend the rim on the other end differently as well because he's just going to be bigger and he's going to expect it. I have nothing but high hopes for the likes of Cale, and I think that these minutes that he's gotten in his freshman season have been huge.
I think that's great. I think it bodes well for both programs. Guys, thanks for kicking off the show. I am really excited, and we're going to be doing this on a regular basis across many sports. And can't thank you enough. It's going to be fun. I know you're bringing guests. You may bring in other fans. You're bringing in coaches. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to cover the Peacocks on a deeper basis. And the first time we've had a weekly show on the Peacocks, so we're really excited about it. And if you have ideas, please feel free to share them. And Mike and Warren, thank you for a first great show.
Thank you, John. Thanks for all the love you give